The first thing I'm going to do, folks, is get away my chair because I feel dead guilty. I'm only 50. I know some of you think, no, you're no, Tom, you're only about 40, but I'm 50 and I'm sitting up here in a chair. That can get better used for somebody else out there, so one of these older guys doing the fringe. Folks, can I, there you go, here's another chair. See? There you go. We'll sit in the flare in solidarity with you. Can I just say, folks, as John and Sharon have already indicated, I've had the great pleasure since January of this year to be able to tour Scotland. This is the 71st meeting I've spoke at. We've managed to get to 12,500 people at these meetings, packed halls like the night. And as John said earlier, it is important to realise, just to take a wee moment, apparently it's a gardener's tip that gardeners often forget, and sometimes you've got to stand back and have a wee look at the roses. I want you to just have a wee look around you tonight. A Friday night, 8 o'clock at night or whatever, and look at the packed turnout. This is evidence of people's desire to find out more about the most important decision that you're ever going to make in a generation, and to hear some of the arguments that are undiluted, undistorted, to hear some of the truths instead of the half-truths that you're getting through the mainstream media, to hear the message of those who believe in a yes vote, to hear it from the horse's mouth rather than to hear it in a distorted fashion by the mainstream media and the multimillionaires who are determined to make you think that you're no good enough, you're no big enough, you're no smart enough, and you're no rich enough to run your own affairs. We're here tonight to try and convince you that we are big enough, we are smart enough, we are courageous enough, and we're certainly rich enough to run our own affairs here in Scotland. That's what we're here tonight for. I want to address what I think are the most important issues concerning this independence referendum. But first and foremost, I think it's vital that we explain what this independence referendum is not about. And Sharon's touched on it. This independence referendum, and I take my hat off, there may be members of the Scottish National Party in the audience tonight. There may be members who have been working hard here in Wishaw to promote the yes vote. Take my hat off to them. Over many, many years, the SNP have done well in keeping the question of independence on the political agenda. However, this is the important thing. On the 18th of September, the SNP are not on the ballot paper. Alex Salmon's name is not on the ballot paper. On the 18th of September, it's not about whether you like, loathe or hate the SNP or Alex Salmond. The 18th of September is much more important than that. The 18th of September is about the future of your country. That's what the 18th of September is about. It's not about politics. We've got an opportunity here, an opportunity that hundreds of countries have seized since the Second World War. Many of them, by the way, had to pick up guns and stones and catapults in order to win their independence from big imperialist nations. We only need to pick up a wee lead pencil. That's all we need to do on the 18th of September. We have to make it loud and clear that this independence referendum is bigger than party politics, and it's bigger than party politicians. This referendum, brothers and sisters, is about freedom. Freedom. Some of you may be thinking, oh, hey, Tommy, he's been on the sauce before he came to the meeting tonight. He's been watching Braveheart again. Where's the claymore and the kilt? We're not exactly in shackles and chains. We're not in prison. We're not even in handcuffs. And I know a thing or two about being in handcuffs. And by the way, just in case there are any gutter journalists in here tonight, none of it for kinky reasons, by the way. Brothers and sisters, what do I mean about freedom? Here's what I mean about freedom. Since 1951, this wee country, Scotland, has rejected the political creed of greed. This wee country, Scotland, has rejected the idea that the way to motivate the poor is to pay them less and get them to work longer, but the way to motivate the rich is to give them bigger bonuses and tax cuts. We've rejected the idea since 1951. Since 1951, this wee country, Scotland, has rejected the idea that public services are for sale to the city smiths in the City of London to become even richer. We've rejected the idea that there is no such thing as society. We believe there is such a thing as society. It's looking after your neighbours, it's looking after the elderly, it's looking after the disabled kids. That's what society's all about. And since 1951, we have refused to vote for a Tory government. That's what Scotland's done since 1951. But here's the rub. Here's the lack of freedom. Since 1951, we haven't voted for a Tory government. But since 1951, our country has had to endure 35 years of Tory government. Not because we voted them, but because the south east of England voted for them. We've had to endure the ruination of whole industries, from steel to coal to rail. We've had to endure communities razed to the ground. We've had to suffer the indignity of mass unemployment, of communities that never knew what drugs were before the early 1980s, then being absolutely ravaged and scarred by the problems that drug abuse bring. We never voted for any of that. We never voted for any of that. But since 1951, we've had to endure 35 years of Thatcher, of Major, and now this lick spittle millionaire Cameron.
Here, here.
We therefore have one very, very powerful argument for why you should vote yes on the 18th of September, brothers and sisters. If you're looking for one argument in the pub, in the workplace, at a local community centre, at the shops, or if it was me yesterday in the Vodafone shop trying to get your phone fixed at the diagnostic table, where somebody is gathered and end up having a discussion of independence. Here's the one single argument that I think should be raised primarily with ordinary people in Scotland. A vote for independence on the 18th of September will prevent your children and their grandchildren ever having to endure another Tory government in Scotland. That's the reality. That's the reality. People want to go on about facts and figures and statistics, and we'll have some tonight. We'll discuss it. But let's be clear about it. This vote is about what's in our hearts here. It's about the future of our children and our grandchildren. An independent Scotland's going to be good for us all, but it's going to be even better for our children and our children's children. This is about the future, not just the present. What else? What
Here's a freedom that you've got in your hands on the 18th of September. A freedom that we have to sing and shout from the rooftops. Most of you won't be aware of the Health and Social Care Act 2012, passed by the Westminster Parliament, applies to England only. And what it does, 455 pages, big bill, the first 2 pages of it, abolish the 60-year commitment that's existed since 1948 when the NHS was formed, abolishes the legal obligation of the Secretary of State of Health to provide free health care to the citizens of England. Gone. Doesn't exist anymore. They have now introduced in England a new internal private market for the provision of health care. They've invited 60 different private firms to bid for the contracts to provide private health care. Firms like the Royal Bank of Scotland, Virgin Money, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Circle, Cement. What do they know about health care? Nothing. What do they know about making money? Plenty. That's what they've done to the English health service. Brothers and sisters, see if you believe that the health service in Scotland is valuable. See if you believe the health service in Scotland should remain in public hands. See if you reject the idea of what they've done in England, where they've modelled it in the United States of America, where they're going to force citizens there to take out private health insurance. You know what happens in America, don't you? You go to hospital, they don't reach for your pulse, they reach for your wallet. That's what they're introducing in England here and now. If you don't believe me, go on to YouTube. Look up Professor Alison Pollock, Professor of Health Economics. Look up Dr. Philippa Whiteford, cancer consultant. Listen to what they're saying. People who know what they're talking about. Saying loud and clear, if we vote no on the 18th of September, within 5 years the health service will be unrecognisable in Scotland. Within 10 years the health service will be privatised in Scotland. That's the reality of a no vote on the 18th of September. What else? What other freedom do you have? The freedom to keep your education service free for kids who want to go to university, who want to develop their skills, who want to get a qualification. How many of your parents in here? How many of you want your children to get something maybe you couldn't get? To maybe get a better qualification, a better education. That's why we've fought long and hard to keep education free. What have they done in England? They've privatised it. You want to send your Wayne to university in England? You better have £9,000 every single year. Every single year. If you don't have £27,000 for a 3-year degree, your Waynes can't go to university. Here in Scotland, we don't have any upfront tuition fees. We've kept university education open. No open enough as far as I'm concerned. We need to introduce mandatory grants for working class kids so that they can get support to go to university. That's the things we can change in an independent Scotland. But in the here and now, we don't have upfront tuition fees. Imagine this. We vote no on the 18th of September. And that mob down there on the 19th of September begin to look at the budgets. Because you know what happens? They provide our money. They give us our pocket money. We spend it in the wee parliament in Edinburgh there. We get to spend it as soon as you want to do anything adult, like you don't want to take part in wars, or you want to ban this public sale of air guns, or you want to increase workers' wages. They say, don't be silly. You're only a wee parental guidance parliament. You don't get to take decisions like that. They give us our budget to spend. 19th of September. And they're sitting round that cabinet table and they'll be pissing themselves. They'll be saying, ha, the jocks, they can all sing Flower of Scotland when Scotland's playing, but they don't have the bottle to stand up and be counted when it comes to becoming an independent country. They want us to keep giving them money, to have no upfront tuition fees of £9,000 a head. Aye, that'll be right. They will force us to introduce the same measures that they've introduced down in England. That's why you've got the freedom on the 18th of September to keep education free. Brothers and sisters, there's another freedom you've got. There's another freedom which is very important to me. Might not be everybody's cup of tea, might not rock your boat the way it rocks mine. But I've got to say to you, I get pissed off. I get pissed off every single year without fail. Red Nose Week, Band-Aid, Live Aid, all these well-known superstars on the telly snapping their fingers. A child dies every 4 seconds. A damn disgrace. A child dies every 4 seconds of malnutrition. Thousands of kids die every day because of cholera, dysentery, diarrhoea, because we don't have enough mosquito nets. Brothers and sisters, what I want to say to you is this. Why is it in this world of ours there's never enough money to feed the Waynes and to give the Waynes the medicines to save their lives, but there's always enough money for bombs and missiles and war? Why is that? Why? As a wee country to make our mark on the planet, because we're going to be a country that says nuclear weapons, immoral, illegal, scrap metal, because they'll never be used. If you ever use nuclear weapons, the game's a bogey. The planet's ours. Why the hell are we spending billions of pounds on nuclear weapons when we could be spending billions of pounds in hospitals and schools and doctors and nursing? That's what we should be spending our money on. That's what's important. We've got the freedom in our hands here. If none of the other reasons we've talked about so far mean enough to you, then please think about this. A vote yes is to send a message across the planet that Scotland's a country of peace, that Scotland believes that there are more important things in life than nuclear missiles that kill indiscriminately. We believe in the real things that matter, like education, like health, like new houses. We've got the potential to build all of that instead of investing more in weapons of mass destruction. Brothers and sisters, here in Scotland, we've got the potential to reject the bus journey, to get off the bus. To get off the bus that Westminster's got us on. The bus that leads to more low pay. The bus that leads to more austerity. The bus that leads to more poverty. We can get off the bus and we can say, no, we're not into that journey any longer. We're into a new journey, because independence is not a destination. Independence is only the start of a new journey to build a better, fairer, more progressive Scotland, where we invest in real jobs with real pay. Instead of poverty wages and a minimum wage, we introduce a living wage so that people don't have to rely on benefits, working tax credits, housing benefit and the rest. If you paid people a decent wage, you would save money. When are we going to stop it? When are we going to stop subsidising the Asdas and the Tesco's of the world, the Morrisons? When are we going to? When are we going to have the bottle to introduce legislation that forces these multi-billion-pound corporations to dig into their pockets, and instead of multi-billion-pound profits, they actually pay their workers a living wage and we don't subsidise them any longer? When are we going to do that? And by the way, that's no law. In an independent Scotland, we don't just introduce legislation for a living wage that gives dignity to everybody in employment. in an independent Scotland, we abolished the scandal of 0 hours contracts, which is a disgrace. That's what we do in an independent Scotland. Our opponents in this debate, the Bitter Together campaign, tell us, UK, okay.
Sure not.
Tell you what, 1 million families last year, 1 million families rely on food banks.
Shame.
First time since the Second World War, the Red Cross in Britain are now involved in distributing food parcels here in Britain. We have over 1 million, predominantly young workers, on 0 hour contracts where they don't know day for day whether they've got a job. We've got 1 in 4 children born into poverty here in Scotland. We've got 1 in 5 of our pensioners living in poverty here in Scotland. We have the scandal, brothers and sisters, the scandal of 2,000 elderly folk every single winter, 2,000 dying prematurely of hypothermia because they can't afford to put their heating on. UK okay?
No.
UK's no okay to me. UK's a damn disgrace. UK's okay for the multi-millionaires. UK's okay for the 23, the 29 members of that cabinet that are personal millionaires, condemns that we never voted for, but are running our lives. 23 personal millionaires that sat around a table on the 1st of April last year, sat around a big cabinet table, 23 of them personal millionaires, and said, oh, we need to introduce some austerity, chaps. Why don't we punish those buggers that live in those council houses, those ones on housing benefit? Why don't we introduce a bedroom tax? Why don't we attack the poor for being poor? Why don't we force these working class types to get their children to share bedrooms? How dare they? Don't you know? They're actually giving their kids separate bedrooms. How dare they? They sat round and introduced a bedroom tax to punish the poor, predominantly disabled. 70% of the people, 70% that were targeted by the bedroom tax were disabled families who were put into those houses because they needed somewhere to store the disabled equipment, or because their partners needed a different bedroom, because one of them couldn't sleep properly because of their disabilities. Punishing the disabled, that's what these swine were doing. And in the same breath, after they passed that, they then said, oh, what's next, chaps?
Tax cut.
Oh, here's a wee tax cut. Because we're all in it together, don't you know? We're all in this together. So why don't we, on the same day that we introduce bedroom tax for the poor, why don't we introduce a tax cut for the rich? Why don't we say that anyone who's earning £150,000 a year or more will cut their tax by 5 pence in the pound? That's what they did. Cut it from 50 pence in the pound to 45 pence in the pound. Do you know that 13,000 millionaires today in Britain are paying £100,000 a year less in tax than they did last year? We're all in it together. My arse. We've got the chance here in Scotland to say to your Lord Robertson, your Lord Reid, your Lord Fox, your Lord McConnell, oh, they've all been dispatched, you know, 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, you know, they're super duper red ermine capes, you know, they've been dispatched to frighten us all. Don't dare vote for independence, it'll be doom and gloom. According to wee Bomber Robertson, we're going to become a target for the terrorists and all that. Oh, be frightened, be afraid, be very afraid, you know. The only thing you'd be afraid of is you've seen their faces in the morning, that's the only thing that would frighten you. And of course you then realise that they are not interested in poverty here in Scotland. They're not interested in low pay. They're not interested in Scotland's potential. What they're interested in is on the 19th of September, when we vote yes for independence, they're getting a P45 because we don't need the House of Lords. That's what I'm worried about. I had a wee debate a few weeks ago through in Edinburgh there on the, I think it was This Week it was called, some show. And I had Michael Buffon Patillo across the couch from me there. I used to know him when he was a right-wing twat. Now he's a right-wing twat with tartan trousers on. Need to watch the BBC's recording this, we need to be polite. Aye, right. And I made a few points about the potential of an independent Scotland. I made a few points about, never mind our oil and gas reserves, which not only we've been told they might run out in 40 years' time. Oh, help my Bob. Going to run out in 40 years' time, no. They never told you, of course, in that show about the geological surveys that have been done in the West Coast that show that there is more gas and oil to be extracted from the West Coast than we've even extracted from the North Coast. And the reason it's not been extracted is because it's in the direct shipping line of Trident. Well, as soon as we get rid of Trident, then we can extract the oil and gas from the West Coast. Yes! I says, not only do we have the oil and gas, but never mind that. We've got a food and beverage industry that means that Standard & Poor, the Financial Times, and every other financial organisation has estimated that even without oil and gas, Scotland would be number 16 in the world of rich nations as an independent country. With oil and gas, we're as high as number 4. That's the reality. I said, you know, we've got the potential in Scotland with 25% of the whole of Europe's wind, wave and solar power. We could become a country not only that's known for peace, but we can become a country that's known for sustainable energy production that we export across the world. Clean energy production. Scotland could become the world leader. I made these points. The bold Michael said, what Mr. Sheridan has to realise in his independent Scotland is he'll lose the subsidies from England. Honestly, by the way, it pisses you off even more to think he's actually getting paid to be on that show. He doesn't know what it is to put his horn in his pocket. He gets taken around the country with the BBC and make these shows. I said to him, Mr. Patillo, you have to waken up, sir. You have to waken up to the reality. Scotland is no subsidy junkie. In the last 33 years in a row, no 1, no 2, no 3, 33 years in a row, this country, Scotland, has paid more money to the English Exchequer than we've got back from the English Exchequer. That's the reality. That's the reality. We don't start off, brothers and sisters, as a poor, struggling nation. We start off as a potentially rich and powerful nation. That instead of allowing the multi-millionaire businesses and individuals to choose what taxes they pay, we introduce legislation to make sure they pay their bloody taxes. We introduce legislation as an independent country with all of the wealth that we have on our fingertips. We generate, in Scotland, we generate £10,500 per head compared to £9,000 per head in England. We are a potentially rich country. In an independent Scotland, by the way, all of the things that we've talked about, they're all possible. They're all possible. But by the way, know what they are? They're only the start. They're only the start. See me, I'm not fighting for an independent Scotland, and some of you will be different, because we've got different visions. We're all united on our belief for independence. We're all united in our belief for independence. That's what keeps us united. But I'm a socialist. I want independence for different reasons for other people. I want independence so that I never ever have to experience what I did with my first job in 1985 when I graduated from Stirling University and I got a job in a community programme with Starcliffe Regional Council, and I was a team leader in the hypothermia programme. My job as a team leader was to supervise a team of 8 people that would chart doors in the south of Glasgow to establish if there were any pensioners there. And once we established that there were pensioners there, we then gave them advice about how to avoid hypothermia. In one of the energy richest nations on the planet, we were advising war heroes about how to avoid hypothermia. We were advising them to wear socks in bed, to wear woolly hats. Tell you what, brothers and sisters, this is what I want to do in an independent Scotland. I want to do what the Labour Party didn't have the bottle today in 13 years in power. 13 years, remember. 13 years in which they presided over a greater growth in inequality. 13 years in which they refused to repeal one single anti-trade union law. 13 years! 13 years! 13 years in which they refused to take back one single industry that was stolen from us by Thatcher. I tell you what I want to do. Tell you what I want to do in an independent Scotland. I want to guarantee there's never ever another pensioner anywhere in this country ever dies prematurely of hypothermia, because we're going to cut the gas, we're going to cut the electricity prices, because we're going to do what Labour didn't have the bottle to do. We're going to take back gas and electricity and in public ownership. That's what we're going to do. Think about the potential that exists, brothers and sisters. I don't want oil to stay in the private hands of the Texan billionaires. When the licences come up for renewal, for exploration, extraction of the oil, I want them to be made public. So that we're just like Norway, so that we're just like Venezuela, so we're just like all the Middle Eastern countries. Where oil isn't owned by private companies, it's owned by the government. That's the potential we've got in an independent Scotland, brothers and sisters. You know, I'm going to finish here because I know it's a dead hot evening. I apologise for speaking too long. It's uncomfortable, right?
Keep going, mate. Keep going.
I want to say this. I want to say this, brothers and sisters. In this debate, people are always looking for certainties. Can you be certain of this? Can you be certain of that? By the way, can you be certain you're going to wake up tomorrow morning?
No.
Come on. Certainties in life? I can't give you certainties. I can't tell you every dot and comma of what an independent Scotland's going to be like. I can tell you what I want it to be like. I can tell you that there's a great big empty book right in front of us, and each one of us has got a pencil, and we can write the future of Scotland in that book. But before we can bloody open it, we'll have to vote for independence before we can open the book. But if it's certainties you're looking for, here's certainties for you. If we vote no on the 18th of September, you can be absolutely certain on the 19th of September there'll be more poverty pay, there'll be more unemployment, there'll be more job losses, there'll be more food banks, there'll be more zero hours contracts, there'll be more inequality. That's a certainty. Unison Scotland brought out a document a month ago. Here's the frightener for you. Brought out a document a month ago. They said that we've already in Scotland lost 50,000 jobs in the public sector because of austerity. But the problem is, only 40% of the cuts that have already been announced have so far been implemented. There's another 60% of the cuts to come, another 60,000 jobs in the public sector across Scotland to go. That's a certainty. So brothers and sisters, I appeal to each and every one of you. Don't just state for yourselves. Some of you may have doubts, you know. And when I have these arguments with some people, I say, look at Westminster, look at what they're doing, look at other policies. If you wanted an absolute bottom line, if you didn't want to listen to other people's visions, an absolute bottom line, could we do any worse than Westminster? There's an absolute bottom line. Could we do any worse than Westminster? And of course the reality is, no, we can't do any worse, but we could do a hell of a lot better. Brothers and sisters, I'm going to finish with a wee bit of an emotional pull at your heartstrings. I'm sorry to do this, but it sort of keeps me going because I've got to say to you, 71 meetings, it means I've got a wife, a lovely wife, and I've got a beautiful daughter, and it means I don't spend as much time with them as I would like to. But I think it's worth it because it's for my Wayne's future that I'm doing it. And I think to myself, in terms of inspiring me across the country, I think of the words of a song by Larry Sifry called Something Inside So Strong. The verse that fires me up for this debate, because we're facing all the multi-millionaires and all the media, all these powerful people who tell us that we're not good enough. I remember the verse that reads, brothers and sisters, when they say we're just not good enough, when we know better, just look them in the eyes and say, we're going to do it anyway. Thanks very much, brothers and sisters.